We got dead spider, dead scorpion, little scorpion. But what the hell happened here? It's been a battle for the ages. Anyway guys, I know I desperately need a haircut, but you're gonna have to deal with it for a while because I'm too busy to get one. So today we are putting the big bad RB back in the 33 of Brad's. So for those who missed the first episode, this is Brad's beautiful wide body 33 with a 34 front. Forgive the dustiness, it's been sitting there for quite a while now because we've been doing a fair bit of work to this thing and we've had to wait for a few things. So anyway, we had the motor out of the engine room yesterday. I've primed it up, got some oil pressure happening. We've got about 50 PSI just on the stand, which is awesome. So oil pressure's good, got no leaks with that. I've got it ready with the greasing up the clutch fork and the input shaft and everything. So it's pretty much ready to go, get slammed in. For anyone wondering how we prime up something with a crank driven oil pump like these, obviously it's a lot easier with the old school stuff where you got like dizzy driven oil pumps and that. Look, it's really easy to pre-prime them, but these things can be a bit of a struggle. Usually if it's in the car, just plugs out, wind it over on the starter with the injectors disabled, try and get some oil pressure happening. Or on the stand, what we do is just get a socket and we get our high torque power drill. It's just a hammer drill, but if it's just on drill, it's really high torque. It does really well. We just spin it up again, no plugs, make sure there's no load on the bearings. So it turns nice and freely and spin it up, and yeah, we managed to get up to sort of 50 PSI like that. So that just ensures you're actually getting oil pressure and the oil pump is primed, because if it's not primed properly, they can get airlocks and cause a problem. The other thing I always do with these, you would have noticed when I actually put the pump together, I packed it with assembly lube. That helps a great deal. But when it's on a stand, you can actually turn it over, and the RBs have like a nice little hole that feeds the oil filter. And that hole is literally just a passage straight down into the pressure side of the oil pump. So all I do is get a funnel, stick it in that hole, turn it on its side, and I fill the funnel with oil, and I just turn the motor backwards and try and get that oil sucking down into that pump and down through the pickup. That's how I, on a stand, an easy way to actually prime the oil pump and then fill it with oil and use the drill, make sure you get an oil pressure. Usually good to go and ready to go in the car. So another thing that we've been talking to Brad about that was always the plan for this car when he dropped it off. Again, my fault for probably leaving it this late to try and sort it out. Sorry, Brad. But you can see here, Brad is running a beautiful powertrain digital dash. I rate these dashes very highly from what I've seen of them so far. I'm very impressed with them. But the problem he has is he's got a Haltech Platinum plug-in for the R33. As such, the powertrain digital dash, they work on CAN. So he's got CAN connection to the ECU, which is great. But the plug-in ECU for the R33 obviously doesn't have provisions for things like oil pressure or intake air temp or oil temperature or anything like that. So that being said, he hasn't been able to get oil pressure or anything to display on the digital dash. So he's got all his apexi gauges in the dash here, which he wants to delete. Fortunately, with the Platinum plug-in, you can actually buy an expansion harness, which gives you a few more inputs. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to put an expansion harness into the Platinum so that he can actually have oil pressure, oil temperature. We're going to do intake air temp as well as fuel pressure. So that he has all them inputs on the ECU, which means then they can be displayed on the dash. Not only that, but with those inputs on the actual ECU, I can actually tune in a lot of protection parameters for those issues, things like dropping oil pressure or dropping fuel pressure or oil temp getting too high, things like that, which is obviously great for protecting Brad's investment in his engine. So we're going with that, and that means that we get to delete all of the old sensors for them gauges, which were all under the turbo on the hot side here. So it's a bit of a convoluted thing going on here with all these sensors on this hot side, right, and the heat in the way. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete all them before it goes back in the car. That simplifies that a great deal. And when I put the new sensors in, I'm gonna put them in the stock location here behind the oil filter, keep them away from that heat on that hot side, and get a bit of that clutter out. So I've ordered the parts and sensors that I need to actually do that. Hopefully they'll be here later this week, but for now we're just gonna get the motor in the car and get it running. So Brad also supplied, he's installed here a remote oil filter location as well as a oil cooler. Keeps them oil temps down on track. You'll notice that I haven't actually put the sandwich plate on yet. I've just put the stock filter on. Because I pulled the crank out, obviously the bottom end of this thing is once again filled with assembly lube and some stuff you don't want going through your cooler and stuff. You don't want that sort of crap in there. So I put that filter back on. It's just the old filter that it came here with. For now, and I've just put some cheap sort of mineral oil in there so I can flush out all that assembly lube on startup, and then after we've flushed all that out and changed the oil, we'll get Brad's oil cooler setup finished and have this thing ready to go for when the rest of this gear gets here so I can tune it. So we'll get this in there. One thing I probably should add onto that information there is that we have actually found with the RB30 oil pumps, because the gears are so narrow they don't move that much oil, we've actually found that we haven't been able to really get oil pressure off a starter or off a drill or anything. We've always had to actually have the car running to actually build oil pressure with an RB30 pump. That being said, most of the RB30s we build, we don't use an RB30 pump anyway, for that exact reason. They don't flow that much oil. So we generally haven't had that much problems because we don't use them very often. But the RB30 that I built for my 31 previously had the 30 pump in it, and yeah, we found that I couldn't actually get oil pressure without it running. So anyway, it's enough yapping. We'll get it in the car. Much better without all that clutter of all them sensors up there. Feel much better about all that. Alright guys, don't anyone tell Anthony in the comment section that we're using Loctite on these flywheel bolts, right? Alrighty guys, so now with ARP flywheel bolts, which is a little bit more better than the stock ones. Get this twin plate on there. I actually just noticed that Brad's spigot bush is actually really sad, so I'm going to replace that while we're here. Always keep a few of these in stock. They're real cheap, they're like $6 from Repco. You just your RB spigot bush, so pull that one out. You can see it's all chipped on the outside. It's actually some weird damage, I've got to say. Holy crap. I've not ever seen a spigot bush like that. That is next level screwed. Glad we picked that up. Freaking hell. Very sad. That's really strange. The fact that this motor's only been finished for enough for some dyno time and then one track day. It's incredible. That's wild. That's a bit more like it. I think gearbox is going to be, I think that input shaft's going to be a fair bit happier with that now. Righto guys, we're in the hole, just measuring up what size belts we need with this new underdrive balancer. We're going to go for a run to the parts shop and get the belts we need, and we'll come back and finish off the install and get it started. Alright, we are getting there. Look how sexy this thing looks. Such a nice red. Knocked it out of the park with these covers he did. Anyway, I've got to get going because the parts shop here didn't have the right oil that I need for tomorrow to get this thing once we flush it out. So I'm going to get going, try and get to the parts shop down the coast before it shuts. So we'll kick this thing in the guts tomorrow. But yeah, it's getting there, getting it together. Also, I've got a few other things to do. I've got to actually put a bung in his intake pipe for his intake air temp before it goes in and stuff. So there's a little bit of stuff still to do. But you know, it's all part of the process. Good to be finally getting in. So he's got his GK Tech fan back in here, and he actually supplied a shroud. So now it's got a shroud. So this thing should be nice and cool. It should be a super reliable, consistent car now to just do heaps and heaps of laps. So anyway, I'll get moving. Righto guys, got our oil. We're back here this morning, so time to get this thing to the point where we can fire it up, flush all the crap out of it, change over to the remote system and get some new oil in it. And then we are just waiting on our new sensors and stuff for the ECU, then we can get it on the dyno. Alrighty, so we got it running. We did have a few problems. Some idiot actually pins the new coil pack loom wrong because I had the assumption that it was wired into the igniter just 1 through to 6, the cylinders 1 through to 6, but it's actually wired in a firing order, so we got it there. Cheers, big fella. Going on, mate.
How are ya?
Another RB for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, we got it there. We'll get it warmed up and dump this oil out and do what we've got to do. It's running like, it's not running very good. It also sounds like we've got a cracked exhaust manifold maybe, but yeah. It's running like hardly any base pressure for fuel, so definitely needs a good tune. Lucky we know a few guys that can do that. Alright, so we've drained the oil, refilled it. I've set up Brad's full remote filter and cooler setup, plumbed that all in, so that's all working now, and I've filled all that up and sort of got the car to a reasonable oil level, because I know a lot of people were wondering about what the actual capacity of this airflow sump is. So it appears so far to be just over 8 litres with this cooler setup. So it's got, what is it? I'm not even going to count, but about a 16 row oil cooler here. A little half filter, plus these lines obviously. And that sump with this RB, it's looking like about just over 8 litres, which is obviously quite a nice big chunk of oil. So that's awesome. So I'm going to run it a bit more. I've marked here. After I've run it this time, I'm going to pull this back off. This is where I'm going to put the intake air temp sensor for when we get this expansion for the dash and the ECU. But apart from that, it's all looking very good. So. Alright, so we've had heaps of problems with these cheap fittings on this oil relocation setup. We had to swap some out, re-terminate a few. We finally sort of got pretty much all of them sorted, except for this one is still leaking here. But we don't have any more right angle dash 10 fittings in stock at the moment, so we'll just let Brad know that I'd recommend re-terminating that with a better quality 90 for that one. It's not a bad leak, it'll be right, it's not going to affect it too much. It's just it'll be one of those annoying things where it always has this little weep. So a lot of the cheap fittings that we replaced on the cooler setup we've now utilised in the breather setup, because it's not as detrimental that they don't leak, because they shouldn't be you know, travelling oil anyway. They should really just be breathers. But this is what we've done with this breather setup. He's got his 2 stock breathers, which were here, or not stock, but the 2 that the car came here to us with anyway. And then we've teed in this one here, which is the other port on the sump down there, you can see. So seeing as the sump already had the extra dash 10 port, I figured we may as well utilize it and set it up so it's got some breathing as well. You know, RBs they are an engine that does like to breathe, so having that extra sump breather will just help out a fair bit. The idea of that is that if you relieve the crankcase pressure from the back side of the rings, it'll help your ring seal. So it sort of is, it works twofold to helping your breathing setup, because if you get better ring seal, you're going to get less blow by, which means the engine's going to breathe less. So it's sort of like a really helpful situation where if you get the engines breathing properly, you'll get better ring seal, and funnily enough, you won't get as bad blow by. So anyway, that's what we've done. That should be hidden nice and well under his intake setup once it goes back on. That's why I've done it like that. Got his covers back on. You can see how sexual this thing looks. Looks amazing. So last thing I've got to do is drill this here for our intake air temp and then just bung it up until we get our lumen sensors. Apart from that, this thing's ready to rock and roll. And yeah, everything's good. Oh, we found that exhaust leak that we thought was a cracked manifold. We actually found it was just the gate V-band is installed wrong. So once that's cooled down properly, we'll sort that out and fix that properly so that the gate's installed right. We lose that exhaust leak, which will help us immensely, but it's looking great. Oh, woohoo, bit of colour. Like a bloody bought one, like it grew there. Alright, and that's installed with just a bung for now. Wait until we get our sensor, it'll go straight in there. It's a nice little fella. Rex is sorting out this wastegate, fixing our exhaust leak. I've just started draining the radiator to put coolant back in. As you guys know, first startup's always just straight water. The coolant that Brad has supplied is red and not green, and a lot of the water that came out of it was really still very green, so we're going to do another flush just with water before we fill it up with the red coolant. So for those of you who don't already know, the difference between the red and the green is just the glycol content. So red's meant to be higher in glycol, I think, or different, or something like that. It's meant to be better for alloy. That's pretty much the difference. The reason we don't want to mix red and green is because it goes like a poopy brown colour and looks gross. Righto guys, we've got some lovely red coolant in here now. We flushed it twice, but that's all done. We're still chasing this exhaust leak. We tried this V-band, and we'll go out tomorrow morning when it's cool again. We'll pull it back off again and have another look. It's been a pain in the ass. It's causing an issue, but apart from that, this thing's more or less ready for our sensors. So that's going to be it for this episode. So my apologies, guys. I know that today was another one of those days where I probably didn't film as well as I should have. We just had a pretty annoying day of chasing those issues with those fittings and stuff. It ate heaps of time. So anyway, regardless, the thing's ready now. It's awesome to have this thing ready. It's actually been here for such a long time when we think about it, like before Zach's 33 even. So just waiting on machining and stuff like that. It's just been a bit of a pain. But it's nice to reclaim this bench because it was all Brad stuff before. It's been Brad stuff for weeks, so to reclaim that bench. Nice to have this motor in a car instead of sitting on a stand. And yeah, really excited to get this thing done and back to Brad because I know he's going to get around a fair bit and drive a lot, and it's such a nice looking car, so it's beautiful. So anyway, next video is going to be when we get this loom and these sensors. We'll set up more inputs into the ECU so that we've got more inputs on the digital dash and everything else. I'll film that really well because I know a lot of people are very interested in these power tune digital dashes, and I am quite impressed with them, so I'm going to film that quite in depth and show you around the power tune digital dashes and stuff because value for money for them is great. So anyway, thanks for watching. As always, smash like, smash subscribe, head to the store, buy yourself something nice, helps us out, you get something cool, everyone wins, it's great. So we'll see you on the next one. Peace out, see you, bye.